So I love your content. I love your page, The Curious Parent. You have garnered more than 1 million active followers, very engaging page you have on parenting, and such amazing content you put out there, Harpreet. Thank you so much for doing this, first of all. No, thank you. So a lot of learning for me as well from the previous. Yeah. So rare to see men making content on mental health, parenting, relationship.
Like, I've always been curious about why people do what they do. And after our daughter was born, my thoughts sort of drifted towards childhood. Long story, but essentially I started reading science and I understood that the first 8 years of life matter. Mountaineering, I actually left because I was on a hill, on a mountain at 7,000 meters. I started clipping photographs of my child and I said, what am I doing here in snow? Why am I wasting my life? I need to be home, is naturally. So I left that and, stopped mountaineering. But I wanted to enjoy outdoors with Ara. So we had gone to Mulund, there's a hill, and I said to our daughter, let go. There is interference in the tide's lights, and that is all the people who come in there again hassle. So I find it a lot of fun, because the tide is ever changing, and hence the world doesn't remain the same. You're ever learning. If you're open to learning, you're ever learning. So I view parenting as it's a parenting, and it was a difficult thing to accept. But I'm glad and I think over time, we are adorable, I think. And the nature is there, mountains are there, hills are there. I got introduced to his mountain at the age of 25, 26. So there's no need for it to be so early. The only thing is I need to be outdoors, enjoy with my child. Whether she falls in love with mountains or hills is her own choice, will happen or not happen. That is for her to decide. And you can be present for a child for the first 6-7 years of their life. With a child knowing my parent cares for me and they will be there for me no matter what. Nothing is there. Like not one reel, not one video, nothing is there. Then a beginner in psychology will say, oh, I am responsible. No, I can. And then over time realize no one is responsible. You're just the way you are, they are just the way they are. And it's okay.
Things happen.
It happens.
Can you comment on this? Did that quality of yours go up in this journey? If so, how do you regulate your emotions? How do you manage anger? Can you comment on this? Did that quality of yours go up in this journey? If so, how do you regulate your emotions? How do you manage anger?
I think it's up. I think nobody should think that having a child can help them manage anger. Yeah, that is very possibly agree. Yeah, most parents will do that. Let me say this again, right? It is genuinely my wish that every parent understand that their relationship affects the child. That it has such a big, profound effect that the child definition of love comes from how you love each other. One of the biggest definitions of love comes from there. This is why children from abusive backgrounds can get into abusive relationship later because there is a definition of love. And they believe love comes along with it.
Yeah.
If not for the research or the, I think, positive thinking that he brings around like parenting.
Right.
Because, I got my parents bought me and my brother and sister in a way. And then just from a formal talking, it became to interesting discussions, right? So, so I think it has helped, in our audience. And I can relate a lot of incidences to my childhood.
Hello and welcome to Stories with Maya's Amma. Today I have with me Harpreet. Hi Harpreet.
Hi, good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So I love your content. I love your page, The Curious Parent. You have garnered more than 1 million active followers, very engaging page you have on parenting, and such amazing content you put out there, Harpreet. Thank you so much for doing this, first of all.
No, thank you. It's been a lot of learning for me as well over the last few years.
Yeah. So rare to see men making content on mental health, parenting, relationships. I see a lot of Western influencers, content creators, but in the Indian content arena, it's very rare. So thank you once again for doing what you do. I'm sure so many men are getting inspired.
That is the hope.
Yes, yes. So Harpreet, you are from an IT background, EdTech background.
Yeah, I did my engineering at IIT Bombay.
Oh.
I didn't understand most of it.
Okay.
I then was working at an analytics consulting company, and
Okay.
then I ran a company myself, which was in EdTech.
Okay.
So I've been around education, EdTech, technology for the last 20 years or
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it says you're into education and parenting research.
yes.
Yeah. I want to ask about what kind of research and all that you do, but how did you end up creating content? It was a very recent phenomenon, no? 2023.
We started in January last year. Yes, January 2023. Yes. And it's interesting that you asked this about saying creating content. That was not the goal.
Okay.
That was not the start.
Hmm.
The start was actually I've always been curious about why people do what they do. Why can somebody not sleep without the fan on? Somebody wants a sound always like that. Why would, let's say, a presswala actually leave their town and move to Bombay and do this pressing job here? Like I've always been curious about why people do what they do. And after our daughter was born, my thoughts sort of drifted towards childhood. It's a long story, but essentially I started reading child psychology, and I understood that the first 8 years of life matter. By then I built and sold a company, made some money. I didn't have to do anything for money, so I was just floating about.
Okay.
And in that floating for 2-3 years, I saw me continuously going back towards child psychology. That is how I got interested. And at some point, a friend said, "Why don't you stand against that wall and shoot a video of you?"
Okay.
And that video got a lot of views, and that is how content creation started. So I think what excites me is, my wish is that every parent should understand their child.
Right.
That is a deep desire that comes, which is led to doing so consistently over the last 2 years.
Great job at it actually.
Thank
So
you.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah. About parenting research. What have you found in your research about children?
What have I found in research?
Anything
about it?
interesting, please share with us.
So look, I think there's interesting stuff, and there is stuff which is true and simple.
Okay.
Let's go to both. Okay. What is interesting stuff? The interesting stuff, let's say parents are worried about their child is not writing properly, or is switching P and Q, small p and the small q,
Yeah.
the P and the D, and you're afraid, oh, is my child autistic, or does my child have a problem with the brain? What should I do? Then you will force your child to sit and write properly. The school is also putting pressure.
Absolutely.
But essentially, our brain doesn't have a place to read and write. This is because our brain is 2 million years old, and writing and language was invented only 5,000 years ago.
Yeah, relatively new.
They are relative, very new. It is like yesterday, like 1 second in the entire scheme of things. And hence our brain always evolved to understand objects.
Okay.
For example, say take any mug or this mobile. So if I should say this is mobile, and then I put it like this is still a mobile key.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? This is still a mobile key. Cup you take, you flip it like this, it's still a cup key.
Yeah.
That is how a child's brain operates, because that is how we are born. But a small b, if you flip, becomes a D. A small p becomes a Q.
Changes, yeah.
It changes. But our brain is wired for object orientation. It is only because of continuous reading and writing, a small area in the brain is carved out to read and write.
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, the children who do it too early, they lose the discretion they become less adept at identifying objects and faces.
Really?
Yeah, because you're carving out something. So if you do it too early, you lose something. But automatically, almost every child, 99.99%, will get there by the age of 8. A parent doesn't need to do anything. So that is something interesting that came out, when I was researching. For example, another thing would be children want their kids to draw, and they want their kid to draw within lines.
Yeah.
You know, you draw like
Yeah.
this, you write
Yeah.
like this, you paint within the lines, you buy a book, and then they'll say, why is the line going outside? But essentially, drawing is not an art for young children.
Okay.
Drawing is a cognitive exercise to make the world real in their head. You know, a child's brain is like more mushy, if you would say. So it has to become more concrete. And drawing is a way to make that world. This is why children also do pretend play.
Yeah.
When they do pretend play, the brain becomes, the world becomes real in their head. Similarly, drawing makes the world real to them. That is why children never draw the side of a human in the front of a car. You know, if you see children drawing, it never happens.
Yeah.
Because children always see the side of a car and front of a human.
Yeah.
So, for example, this to me was a big revelation. Jinan in India has done a lot of research on this. But essentially, there's another interesting fact when I was reading. Now, these are interesting stuff, but there's some things that are true. Like somebody was to say, what have you found? And I would say, I found out that children need love. And that is all they need. That we should stop watching reels, stop watching Instagram videos to understand children, stop forming theories in our head. My child is very hard to take care of. My child is shy. We shouldn't form all these theories. You know, we should just be. If you can be present with your child and forget all of this, and you can be present for your child for the first 6-7 years of your life, with the child knowing my parent cares for me and they will be there for me no matter what. Nothing is recorded. Like not one reel, not one video, nothing is recorded. Only this much.
So what does parenting mean to you?
I think parenting is interesting. One way of looking at parenting is that parenting is interference in a child's life.
Interference in a
The
child.
child wants to live the life, you're interfering. You know, the child is born, the child wants to crawl. You're like, oh, you'll fall, you'll fall. You know, the child then starts walking. You know, again afraid to hit their head somewhere. Then child wants to talk and you're worried they're not talking properly. You know, the child wants to read, so you want to then find the child reads quickly, gets ahead. The neighbor's daughter is already reading, what about my daughter? You know, then the child wants to eat something, not eat something, we are worried about that. So, and they say, you don't eat junk food, you do this. Then the child wants to see screen, and then you have to interfere saying, you don't see screen, you know, this much is okay, this is not okay. So it is interference in the child's life. And then the child gets older, puberty is going to come, and then you are again hassled. So I find it a lot of fun, you know, because the child is ever changing, and hence the world doesn't remain the same. You are ever learning. If you are open to learning, you are ever learning. So I view parenting as, it's a parenting, if you allow it, is a way to be reborn. You know, you have been conditioned yourself from your childhood. So you are like a dark room in which having a child opens a window and sunlight comes in, if you allow it. And you can actually look at all your beliefs, systems and everything and change yourself. And have a great time with your child and have fun while doing it. That is at least how I see it.
Yeah. What about fatherhood? What has fatherhood taught you? Tell me 2 things that fatherhood has taught you. Big learnings.
Is fatherhood different than motherhood? What do you say?
Then we can talk about that for another hour. I
Yeah,
guess.
we shouldn't go into that.
Let's not.
You know, like, I think parenting has taught me a lot. I wouldn't actually conform to saying fatherhood or motherhood. I think any parent who spends their time with the child learns a lot.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of difficult, so I've learned a lot, but I want, like, 2, if you ask me, you know, there have been 2 difficult incidents for me. You know, once what happened was, you know, my wife who's here actually, hi, she lives in Bombay in Mulund, and there's a hill behind her house.
Okay.
And I love climbing hills. I did mountaineering for 2-3 years of my life. After I sold my company, I spent a lot of time in mountaineering. I actually left because I was on a hill, on a mountain at 7,000 meters. I started clipping photographs of my child and I said, what am I doing here in the snow? Why am I wasting my life? I need to be home with my child. So I left that and, you know, stopped mountaineering. But I wanted to enjoy outdoors with our daughter. So we had gone to Mulund, there's a hill, and I said to our daughter, let's go climb the hill. And you know, my hope is that my daughter will love climbing hills. And when we reach the base of the hill, my daughter starts crying.
Okay.
I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And then it suddenly hit me that I can't force my child to be a certain way. This is my hope for my child. That I want my child to love his because I love his. And it was a difficult thing to accept. But I'm glad I did. And I think over time, we are adorable. I mean, nature is there, mountains are there, hills are there. I got introduced to hills, mountains at the age of 25, 26. So there's no need for it to be so early. The only thing is I need to be outdoors, enjoy with my child. Whether she falls in love with mountains or hills is her own choice, it will happen or not happen. That is for her to decide. That I think was one difficult thing that fatherhood taught me, not to look at the child in front of you, not look at the imaginary child that one wants in their head, to look at the child that you have. That was one. The other, one more thing I remember is when our daughter got glasses. I had researched a lot around myopia increasing in the world. In Hong Kong, 9 out of 10 kids have glasses now. It was 2 out of 10 kids till 20 years ago. Why is it increasing? Because children remain indoors, because children are going to school earlier, they are reading earlier, so the world has become closer to them. That is one big reason. So when our daughter got glasses, I thought in some way I'd fail her. It was very hard. I actually penned an emotional LinkedIn post, I remember. I was surprised that it was hard for me. And then, as I ended up doing the research, I felt responsible as a parent that this is my child, I am responsible in some way for it. And then after a few days it comes, one of the things I read which came to my head back is that, when we start out, we often feel in a relationship the other person is responsible. Then, often even with partners in marriage, the problem is with the other person. They are responsible for this. Then a beginner in psychology will say, oh, I am responsible. No, I can take it. And then over time you realize no one is responsible. You are just the way you are, they are just the way they are. And it's okay.
Things happen.
It happened. I remember I got glasses at the age of 8. I got
Me too. Same
You too?
age.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations, dear, you too. And what was the big deal in glasses? You wear a glass and our daughter actually was happy. Oh, my mom and dad have glasses, I also have glasses, I'm so happy. So what is there to be sad about? So that's okay.
You can make it a style statement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think these two incidents is what come to my head, which said, you do your best and then whatever happens, happens. We can't control what happens in life.
Yeah, true. Very true. So usually in society, boys are raised in a different way compared to girls. At least till our generation, it was very evident. Nowadays, parents are trying to consciously do things in a very equal manner. Okay, but still, things can be gender stereotypical in many families, of course. Nowadays, I'm suddenly very interested in men's mental health. I want men to talk about it. If men are not talking about it, then I want to get them onto the podcast and I want to talk to them about it. That's why I even got interested to have you on the podcast, because you're somebody who actively talks about parenting, mental health. So, you would have definitely heard, boys don't cry, boys have to toughen up, be a man, all of those things. Now you have a girl. Now, if you had a boy, how differently would you have parented him?
See, that's a hypothetical question.
But compared to your childhood, how it was?
Okay. Let me take a step back. And let me just say that I think boys and girls are different. Boys have penis, girls have vagina. Girls can have babies, they can breastfeed, men can't do it. So boys and girls are different.
Yes.
You have to acknowledge that.
Boys and girls are equal, they are not the same.
They're not the same. Absolutely. Right? Now, for example, I'm saying at the age of 4, in a boy's body, testosterone is released. And in girls it is not released. So boys at that age become more jumpy, become more active, they need to be more outdoors, they need to burn off that energy. This is the difference. Right? And there are a lot of such differences which I think a parent can be aware of, so that they understand their child, whether they have a girl or a boy, both go through different things. You should understand your children so that you can respond, not react to what is happening. Not say, अरे यार मेरा बच्चा तो सोता ही नहीं है, मतलब तो जब भी मारता रहता है, सॉरी I'm going to Hindi, but I'm saying essentially my child is so active, how do I keep them quiet? But this is biological, they're supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
Now, I think if we had a boy, I would want my boy to be involved in the house. I would want my boy to be kind to others. At the same time, to like, I think roughshooting, all of that is okay. There's, girls, boys, everyone should be okay with it. I think too often we stop kids from genuinely mingling and playing with each other.
Okay.
No, all pushing is not bad pushing. Sometimes we push our friends also, no?
Yeah.
So, and then that's okay. That is how kids play. When kids' bodies touch each other, it feels nice because that is how their senses are. But I would definitely want, if we had a boy, to be more involved in the house. I would not. I remember an incident from our childhood. So I have a younger sister,
Okay.
and my dadi once was giving milk to both of us. So she gave me a full glass and she gave half a glass to my sister.
Okay.
My sister is 3 years younger. She made such hue and cry that Dadi is discriminating. Such hue and cry. After that day, not an iota of discrimination ever happened in our house.
Okay.
Dadi learned her lesson. Everybody understood that this can't happen. And like I was not aware of it. What is she doing? But now I understand what she was doing. And kids are sensitive to it. So if we can be around kids and feel that energy, I think you will get it.
Yeah.
At the same time, so this is, one is to look at boys as genes, girls as genes. The other is, one thing I would be careful about is, it's not that boys like cars and girls like dolls. Boys like cars because they see more men driving. That is why they like cars. It is not that boys are wired to like and play with cars. That is why they do it. Girls play more with dolls because they see more women taking care of babies. They see other girls playing with girls. Boys like blue because entire lines of clothing are shown to them. This is boys and this is girls for pink for girls. We have created this. Marketing has created this. So I would be careful about those biases not creeping in our own parenting.
Right.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Excellent.
Speaking of emotions, as a parent, it's super important that we follow emotional regulation ourselves so that we can teach how to regulate emotions to our children. And many of us have grown up in families where it was not trained. Like obviously our parents probably never knew how to do it. We can't blame them. But as a parent, it is important that we stay regulated as much as possible. It's not possible all the time. Can you comment on this? Did that quality of yours go up in this journey? If so, how do you regulate your emotions? How do you manage anger?
I think nobody should think that having a child can help them manage anger. It can only possibly increase it. Most parents won't know that. So don't have a child because of that. Let me have a child, maybe I will change myself. I can change yourself and then have a child. I'm saying the child, we can't push our burdens to our children. Take care of yourself and then have children. That is the approach I would recommend. I think I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household where there were no anger or emotional issues. So I remember my childhood as being very joyful and lovely. Having a lot of freedom, being able to do what I wanted. Hence, I don't feel any sort of burden from that, which I think is different from a lot of people. Like in college, half of my friends are not on talking terms with their fathers. The fathers are too strict, their fathers pushed them to study, the fathers beat them. It was a lot of things, and I could never understand. Like my relationship with my parents is absolutely fabulous. My mom is probably still the only person in life who can get me to feel anger sometimes because she will still think of me as a child and see what are you doing with your life, etc., etc. But I think apart from that one block where she would repeat something again and again, and I would say, can you please stop repeating? All the other 99% actually, I believe, is genuinely fabulous. And I think that has actually in doing what I'm doing. At the same time, I remember, let's say, being angry over something that has happened, and I think that something is when life doesn't go your way. That is when anger arises. When you wanted things to be different,
control and it's not
you want, yeah. So then I remember being 23, Bhakti, then my girlfriend is on back of my bike, and then I started to drive wildly just to take off anger, to show my anger, 23, 24-year-old. Those things. And the other thing, I think, actually there's one more thing that at least maybe I picked from Indian households, even from our household, which is that if you are upset or emotional, then you stop talking to each other. If your partner has made you upset, if you believe that your partner has made you upset or done something that you don't agree with, then you stop talking. You punish yourself a little, you punish themselves, and you give them the cold treatment. And then, either they will say sorry or you will. That has been the way to resolve issues in most Indian households. That I think I also saw in my house as well. Because I can't see of where else would I have picked that way of communication.
Right, okay.
And over the last 5-6 years, I think that has changed. More so in the last 3-4 years. Bhakti can maybe share more at some time, but I believe now, if we're angry with each other, we can be okay with each other the next moment. Because we realize why it came, and we can just talk about it. Like we go out, have a cup of tea, and everything is fine.
Right.
Otherwise, you are just letting go of 2 days of your life. You have a very short life, 60-70 years to live. 2 days gone, in anger doesn't make any sense. So, to learn that you can share, to learn for the other person, they can just listen. I think this is a big learning. I would say that. I wouldn't say I was completely devoid of the childhood experience of this. I think this was there, and this has improved with the support of my wife.
Okay. But otherwise, the so-called toxicity that majority of the Indian households had wasn't present. Okay.
Yeah.
We're so envious of you.
Yeah. We'll make it happen. Like we'll remove toxicity. Let me say this again, right? It is genuinely my wish that every parent understands that their relationship affects the child. That it has such a big, profound effect that the child's definition of love comes from how you love each other. One of the biggest definitions of love comes from there. This is why children from abusive backgrounds can get into abusive relationship later, because that is their definition of love. And they believe love comes along with it. Right? We don't need to believe that.
On those lines, this is something that I'm very passionate about. You should have a household, you should have a home that you would want to go back to during vacations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is possible.
Yeah, it is.
And interestingly, it makes your life better and the child's life better. Automatically. 2 in 1.
Harpreet, another angle that I talk about with my guests is about me time. So a lot of parents are frustrated because their cups can be very full. They spend a lot of time for the family, for their parents, for the child, at work, but then absolutely no time for oneself. You spoke about mountaineering. I would like it. Very rare for adults to continue having their hobbies. So what are your leisure time activities, hobbies? How important is me time?
I think me time is important for everyone. Like I've been working on a framework to help a parent understand a child. And one of the first questions there is, how much do you sleep? Sleep is me time, right? But in parenting, when the child is hitting you on your tummy at night, you're breastfeeding, your time goes away. And I think getting enough sleep, for example, is the first me time that every parent should get in whatever way. If it is by sleeping together, then yes. We put a gadda in our room below, so that I could sleep there, so that I could have a nice sleep. And everybody could sleep well. So whatever, I think sleep is the first me time that everybody should get enough of. From that, everything else follows. Now, in the day, I maybe take out an hour to exercise. Our daughter goes to school, that is me time. This is one reason I think schools exist, so that you can get me time. It is not for child to go and learn a lot of things, it is also for you to get some me time. And I think the reason for this is because our society has now been shaped and formed in this manner. It does take a village to raise a child. It does take a lot of loving adults. Now, if you are nuclear families living in cities and you are the one adult who has to take care of 2 kids, take it. It is hard. If you feel it is hard because it is supposed to be hard. You are not alone supposed to be looking after 2 kids. It is not supposed to work in that way. So, find support. If you are living away in the city, build your community. Where your child can go on a play date, you can get me time. Children can play together, you can get me time. Different parents can take different duties and you can get me time. I also think different people need different amounts of me time. Like you talk a lot about trauma, earlier experiences, etc. I think different people have different amounts of ability to regulate themselves. So it depends on whatever me time you need, you should take, because without that, there is no progress. Right? You're only going to go back. You're going to react to something with the child. So take all the me time you need and don't be ashamed of taking it.
Right.
And just remember, the first me time is sleep.
Sleep. Okay. Do you have any words of advice to moms who have mom guilt?
What is mom guilt?
The guilt that moms experience, especially more than dads, because conventionally in our society, men are anyway at work and I'm at home, so I'm supposed to be at home, I'm supposed to be present for everything, I'm supposed to cook every meal, I'm supposed to take care of the laundry, even if I need some me time. I need to do all these things. That set expectation is there because we haven't seen our mothers take any me time. So that guilt is somehow inbuilt in women a lot. So do you have anything to tell moms? That
One, I definitely have that guilt.
No.
In the sense of when I am traveling for slightly longer time, I feel like I want to go back, I want to hug my daughter. I want to meet my wife again. I want to be with the family. So I have that.
Okay.
I can tell you that. So that guilt also exists.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think if any man or woman, and women more so, like you said, because that is what we have seen, is perpetually in guilt about that they are not doing enough for the family, they have to first take care of themselves. You have to get out of this circle. It can be hard, and again, this meditation can help because it helps in changing the way your brain works. Support of community can help. The key reason you should do that is because if you don't get enough time for yourself, there is no way that you can raise a happy, confident child. It is not possible.
Okay.
You first, if a lot of times as mothers or fathers, you want to see your child to be confident, to not be a people pleaser, etc., etc. First, you stop being one now.
Yeah.
When you stop being one, is when real change will happen.
True. Yeah. Harpreet, you talk a lot about education, schooling.
Yeah.
I first thought you were homeschooling your kid, by the way.
Homeschooling is very hard. Very hard.
Yeah.
I can't actually. I tried teaching my daughter once. I think I ended up crying. I can't do that.
Okay.
My wife Bhakti is wonderful at it. She has the patience to sit. My view has been children learn themselves. So I see of teaching more as learning. And I can't think of putting a child in a place and saying you have to learn this today or I will teach you this today. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I remember being in my classroom, the teacher teaching something on the board, and I have taken a comic book and I am reading my comic book all the time. So it is just very hard.
Or we pass notes.
Pass notes week is eat tiffin. Yeah, obviously. Then teacher is wondering, achar ka smell kahan se aa raha hai. So, homeschooling is great. It works for a lot of people, and if you enjoy doing it, it doesn't work for me.
Right.
Yeah.
But something about schooling, Harpreet.
I think schools have been vilified a lot. That schools are bad, etc., etc. I just think schools are representation of what we want from them. schools are a business. They do what parents want. If they say, oh, you know, we are an international school, and then you say, oh, they are charging 5 lakhs. You know, the reason they are able to charge it because you want your child to go to an international school. You know, we want our child to learn English over a local language, which I'm absolutely okay with. I believe every child should know English and their local language. But schools are only a representation of our inner desire.
Consumer's need.
Of the consumer's need. That is about it. So schools are beautiful places without which I think parents will find it very hard to homeschool their kids. The thing in schools, if somebody is actually wanting to go and choose a school, is rather than looking at the upside, which parents keep looking at, which is how do I choose a great school? How do I choose a school which will lead to the best potential of my child? Choose a school where your child is not made to feel small, where the child is not told they are stupid, that they are little, that they can't do this, they can't do that, where the child can move, where the child can play, where the child can pursue their curiosity. You know, we say, oh, I will send a child, we say that I will send my child to a school where their curiosity will increase. There's no question of increasing curiosity. The child is born with full curiosity. You know, we can only decrease it over time. So, choose a school which does not decrease curiosity, which does not make a child feel small, which does not make a child feel that they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't draw, or stuff like this. That is it. Rest everything can be worked on. It is okay.
And I think for some children, schooling does work, might work.
A lot of children love going to school. You know, I wouldn't say I enjoyed school, but I took my cycle every morning and I went to school. You know, I think our daughter loves going to school. I do think that schooling will change a lot. I think AI is a great thing because it will make it clear that a lot of schooling is useless. And it will make it clear very, very fast. What would have happened in 50 years will now happen in the next 5 to 10 years. You know, people will understand you don't need to go to a nice college to be able to earn money. What is schooling for? Schooling is for earning money. Like I remember being told you have to go to school and then college to get a job. So when I opened my own company, my parents were shocked. Hey, no, you have a job, you get such a solid pay, you're leaving it to again not earn anything. In a middle class family, it's very hard. If a parent truly asks themselves, why do we send our children to school? We send them so that they can be financially secure. I think financially secure will happen much more easily without going to school in the coming years. And it will become very, very clear that getting children to sit and study will lead to closed brains, and the kind of jobs which these closed brains can do are going to vanish. They're truly going to vanish. And then what will eventually be valued is a child who is now an adult who can solve things, who can do things with hands. Because all this things of researching, consulting, etc., all of them will go away. So a child actually has real world experiences. Physical interaction with life will be a child, I believe, who will have more chance of success.
Right. That's a beautiful way of looking at it. Speaking of schooling, recently in Cochin, a teenager was bullied and he took his life. Was discriminated for his skin color. There is a lot of talks going on about violent teenagers or violence in the media getting into children's brains, how that is impacting their ability to take out frustration, or they also don't have good avenues where they can let it out. On top of it, maybe parents being disconnected with them, not able to share things at home. So the screen time thing has become a huge issue these days. It's not like our time wherein we get to see some English movie with some violence once in a while, compared to I can access it anytime, every day if I want on OTT or wherever I'm accessing it. So any comments to parents on screen time regulation?
I think what happened in Kochi is very sad. What is also sad is that it takes someone to take their life for us to say, for us to think that being discriminated about color is not okay. That is what it takes for someone, a teenager, and I saw his picture, he seemed like a lively child. It takes someone to take their life for us to actually think that, this is not okay. But I want to say something which I have not heard anybody else say, and I deeply believe it. I think the current generation of children that we are raising, actually the beta generation from Jan 2025 onwards, and the children that people hearing this are raising, this current generation of children we are raising is our last chance to raise kids who will be loving. After this, there will be no going back. The reason I am saying this is that because children are not born to be loving. Love is not given in human nature. Love happens when a small child is comforted by an adult, and that comforting feeling, the neural network interacts with the neural network of that a human has helped me. That is how love and caring is born. It is not about, human beings are nice and kind by nature. Now, when parents don't have enough time for children and mobile becomes the parent or the nanny, what we see will increase and there will be no going back after a certain time. Because when I'm talking to you, you can understand this because you were brought up with love. So you have those memories you can go back to. I can go back to those. But when somebody is not brought up with love and brought up on a screen, how will you explain to them? How will they bring up their children? Actually, will they even have children? 70% of Indian teenagers don't have kids. Why? And I'm not saying everybody should have kids, but I'm saying in our generation, if you ask somebody, everybody says, I'll get married, I'll have kids. Now, I think maybe only half the people in the world should marry, that is good enough, all that is okay. But essentially, this is our last chance to raise a generation which will be loving. If we raise them on mobile, 20 years down the line, there might be no coming back.
According to you, when should be the ideal time a teenager gets access to gadgets? A phone of their own.
I would say a phone of their own, 16 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Before that, they can have access to screen. That is okay. Like for example, child 2 years of age can see 30 minutes of screen. Then till 12 years of age, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, all of that is okay. After that, more access to screens for work, etc. All of that is okay. Our daughter uses Google to research stuff for her projects. She is 9.5. That is cool. But a child having a mobile of their own where they can do anything they want.
The whole internet in their hands.
They have the world in their hands. But if you have to remember that when we give our child access to the world, we also give world access to our child. And that world is not safe. There is an agenda of the world. The world is an agenda. I remember as a kid going out of the house and seeing no advertisements. Like around our house, you could just run away and run, play. There were trees and stuff like this. Now, take your child out. The only thing you see is ads. They see a bridal wear ad. They see somebody selling. They see a nice vacation ad. There is an agenda of the world which is ever pervasive. The world wants to make our child to be a consumer. We want our child to be creative. The more you give them mobile, the higher the chance of your child becoming a consumer. And the content out there is also not safe to consume. You should have no doubt about it. So there is no question of a child. First, don't give them a mobile or a screen before the age of 16. Don't give them access to social media of their own. If you want to give a phone for safety, give a smaller Nokia phone, whatever phone, basic phone. Okay. If they have a device that they use, check history. Tell them that we will check all your history. I am as a parent responsible for you. And I will check it. There is no question of individualism. This is my life, you don't interfere. Don't fall for all that Western stuff. Okay? We are responsible for the child. And in this world, to be responsible, we will have to monitor a bit. Like parenting is interference in a child's life. If we can do it with love and clear rules, that is great.
Also value it. Okay, Harpreet. So that was pretty exhaustive, and I think a parent would have got basics of handling screen time for their kid/teen. Thank you so much for that information. And we all grew up without these gadgets, and as you told, a lot of love. Okay, there was some amount of strictness and toxicity in households, but apart from that, there was that sort of love, community, all of that was there. But at the same time, there has been a lot of experiences from our childhood that we don't want our children to go through. Today, a lot of adults are doing what we call inner child healing, wherein they have experiences that they're trying to reparent themselves on. Do you have any such experiences from your childhood that has affected you or impacted you in any way?
So I don't think I have any deep traumas or stuff,
Yeah, I got to know that
Yeah.
when you.
You're not happy about it, huh? Yeah, I understand that. Thank you to my parents who are watching for ensuring I have no deep trauma. I'm very, very thankful. But I think all of us have conditioning. What is trauma? Trauma to me is either repeated heightened behavior or a big incident that happened in somebody's life. It can be anything. But so deep conditioning is trauma, right? Or negative conditioning is trauma, is the way I see it. So there is one conditioning that I became aware of after marriage, after many years of marriage.
Okay.
Okay, which was that I do not do work in the house, and I'm actually very proud of it.
Okay.
That I see work in the house as something which is below. Like, why should one cut carrots? Like, why should one work in the kitchen? It's like in my head, it was like a waste of time. Like, why should ghiso bartan or do all of that? Because it happened automatically. Our parents, my mother, somebody in the house was doing it. I was actually not asked to go in the kitchen. I think my sister was asked to go in the kitchen and learn how to cook, etc. I never learned how to cook. Actually, I still don't know how to cook. But I think I'm much more comfortable in the kitchen. In the kitchen means I'm okay with keeping the dishes, I'm okay with cleaning the kitchen. I no longer think when I'm teaching, I no longer think when I'm, cleaning the kitchen sink that is a waste of my time. That has taken 2, 3, 4 years of effort to get there. To be very calm and happy about doing it. That this is a part of life. We have to do this. If you don't do it, the house becomes a mess. So being comfortable there, at least was a big deal for me. To be comfortable with doing the housework and not feel that it is useless stuff to do. To understand that when a woman takes care of the house, it is not only the work that we have done, there is a lot of mental load, cognitive load that goes behind managing everything, which I think men are just not aware of. Most men are not aware of. And I think having that pause and being aware of it, and I think I still have a long way to go, has just been, I feel happier that I'm in that place.
Right, that's interesting. Speaking of women in the house and marriage,
Yes.
and learning through this marriage,
Yes.
I'd like to call your wife.
Come, please,
Yeah.
join us.
Yeah, come. Hey guys, I'm so happy to have Harpreet also suddenly on the podcast.
Suddenly. She appeared.
Suddenly.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome Bhakti to Stories with Maya.
Today is our anniversary, huh?
Yeah, 15th anniversary, no?
15th anniversary.
But you guys know each other from IIT Bombay.
Yeah, she and one other girl came to do project. So two of us were there. We kept one each. We didn't think we'll get married, but yeah. So
The
here.
other person got married too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were
My
two best
sister
friends
got
and they were
married.
two best friends.
Oh,
So that is what happened.
wow, okay.
We decided who will get married. No, we decided who will date who. Marriage.
And that's his favorite story to tell everyone.
Okay. So, how many years of knowing each other now?
21.
21. Okay.
More than half of my life.
Okay. Did you ever think he'll get in front of the camera, make content, get into this kind of a field? Did he always have the flair to do that?
I didn't like thing, but yeah, he always had the flair.
I always had flair. What are you talking
Yes,
about?
he always had that.
Okay.
Because in IIT only he did all that show, like
Oh.
you know, biking, taking
Okay.
biking. Like I was hearing you
So it
talking
was always
about
one
young
show off.
guys, boys, right? So it was that way. Not the show off types,
Mhm.
but yeah, the biking thing
Yeah.
and all that adrenaline rush, right?
Okay.
So that was always
This
there.
just came naturally to me.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
talking, yeah, very good talker.
Mm.
Yeah. He can convince you in like 10 seconds.
Right,
Say
right.
that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So how has it been married to?
I can convince everybody except my wife. Just FYI, this is for the record.
That takes what, 10 years?
10 years. That takes, yeah, that took 6 years, 7 years on average.
How is it to do parenting with the parenting educator?
Okay.
Is it all true? Whatever he preaches.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
What?
It is. No, I'm not lying, or I'm being honest here. So, if I think now,
Hmm.
parenting would have been hard,
Hmm.
or so initially when I, was a little negative about it, like I was like, put all this to yourself, like that's what happens in a household, right?
Yeah.
When you're angry.
Yeah.
That's what he said, that when you're not liking to, like something goes wrong and you decide not to talk to each other.
Right.
And then all this negative thoughts come to you. That, oh, maybe his head is in that direction, he thinks that way, I don't, right? About that. But then that was not true, because I think I would have been lost if not for the research or the, I think, positive thinking that he brings around like parenting.
Right.
Because I thought my parents brought me and my brothers and sister in a way. अच्छा ही काम किया, right? We are good. We are working in a good place. We studied well, engineer, doctor, right? So what is it that special you need? Why so much of research? Why do you need to put so much brain around parenting? And it should be natural. That's what I initially thought.
Right.
But I think things have changed over years. We do not live with our families, right? We are just a couple and a kid or two now, mostly busy with our work and also wanting the me time that we just talked about, right? So that has changed a lot. And then you need some kind of guidance.
Right.
And initially, again, one more fun fact, I never even watched this video.
Okay.
I never even followed it on Insta.
Okay.
But then I thought, no, I should see once, like, what is he putting up? And then it would just come in, right, everyday feed, and then I would take out time to see, understand, hear it out. And that actually became very good, that somehow things change over the years. He got into this during pandemic. And that was the time initially I wouldn't know what he's doing, or like wouldn't see his reels or videos. But then over the time we started talking. Now we have a routine. We drop our daughter to school, and after that we at least take out half an hour to talk.
Okay.
Then I want to tell him certain things about my work or what I feel. And then just from a formal talking, it became to interesting discussions, right? So, so I think it has helped,
Yeah, definitely.
all of these.
Yeah.
And I can relate a lot of incidences to my childhood. And
So it's good that you've been doing all this research, Harpreet.
Yeah, it helped me
See?
in my personal life, as you can see.
Yeah.
This, but interesting, like the point what he said is that 30 minutes becomes our me time.
Couple time.
Like after spending those 30 minutes, we can go to our own ways of the world, do whatever we have to do, but still feel
That quality
together. And that, we, like, जो मन में था वो बता दिया, we still connected.
Right. Okay. Now, this brings me to this question. A lot of parents are worried, especially moms. More moms are worried that their husbands are not too bothered about, parenting classes or learning new things. Ma'am, I've been asking him to try this thing, or I've sent him an article. He's not even reading. And obviously, some men also might have that concern about their partners. If one parent is involved, is that okay? Can you just talk about that?
Children, at the minimum, children need one loving hand. That is what children need.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the single parents might be very happy to
They
hear
should,
that.
they should be very happy. Children, one loving adult is good enough for the child. You know, in all research that has been done in which children in slum who didn't have parents, they were studied for many years and was seen who got out of poverty, who did well in life. They traced it back. Everyone who got out had at least one loving adult who took interest in their life. An uncle or some philanthropist or something or somebody who took interest. So this has been proven over and over and over. Now, as many more loving adults, the child has the better.
Right.
Because children can be cruel to each other. You know, like, oh, I am friends with you. Some other new person came, I am now friends with them. You go to hell. They're not thinking like that, but that is how they are. You know, but a parent will be there no matter what happens, or a loving adult will be there no matter what happens. So at least one loving adult, as many as you can get are great. If your spouse is not taking interest in parenting, first of all, stop complaining. Yeah, you know, you be a pleasant person. How can you be unpleasant to your partner about a particular thing and then expect them to take interest? Like that doesn't work. But that is what comes to our head. You know, the moment we see a partner, we see every whole day I was taking care of a child, now he's coming, giving mobile to child, you know, or not taking even for half an hour, some time out. It's a very natural thing. But if you make your relationship with your partner unpleasant, this third thing will never get fixed. So make yourself pleasant, that is step one. Through that, your relationship with your partner can become pleasant. Then the relationship with the child can become pleasant.
And who knows, over a period of time, the partner might start getting interested when they are not forced into it also, right?
I
Might just
might
start
not.
watching their reels. And
So I think it's the expectation, right? I think if I talk about my experience, it was there initially, the very first year when, like he said, right, he was busy with his startup, he would do mounting, and I would spend maximum time with that daughter, right? Because that time, work was there, but still, that was the phase. I initially had that little feeling that why always me, right? You're getting to do your career. My career is also important. I have left my, investment banking thing out of Bombay, and I'm there in Gurgaon. But that was always not a very good feeling.
Right.
When I stopped having that and started enjoying the time with my daughter, right? So our daughter. So that helped a lot. That changed. Like even the time was more fun. I was feeling good, and not having any argument or fight with him. So I think that is more like not having the expectation.
Your focus shifted from that stressful thoughts to child. Good.
And I'm saying it was only when our daughter turned 2.5, 3 is when I realized time with the child is important. Before that, Bhakti actually was spending a lot of time. He said sitting on that mountain flipping pictures when I realized I need to be with my daughter.
What mountain was that?
It was Dholagiri,
Okay.
world's 8th highest mountain.
Note it down, people.
That's
where
That's where the enlightenment happened. Yeah, you're right.
And like a loving wife, I said, no, do not come back. Please finish it off.
Okay.
Your daughter is in good hands. We are having fun.
You know what happened? Actually, I was there, sitting in a tent with a Sherpa with me, flipping through my daughter's pictures. It is minus 10, 15, 20 degrees outside, snowing, the tent is buried. And I'm like, genuinely, what am I doing with my life? I need to be with, my daughter, my family. So the next day I took a helicopter. It was an expedition I had prepared 2 years for. I had been running 400, 500 kilometers a month, taking coaching. I paid 30 lakh rupees for that expedition. When it was a 45-day expedition, at the end of 30 days, I took a helicopter and I came back. As I was about, when I told her I'm coming back, she said, why are you coming back? You'll be there only, your daughter is okay. But by then I had made up my mind to come back. But that is where actually, at least for me, it changed. Right? That is where enlightenment happened.
Speaking of enlightenment and spirituality, guys, please talk about your mindfulness practices as a couple that's following conscious, mindful parenting in your life. You being stressful, creating content, speaking to the world, 1.1 million followers, you having your own career, and you guys are present with the child as much as possible. how much is mindfulness important in our lives?
Okay.
Anything you personally practice?
So,
Yeah.
right? No, I wasn't sure. So, okay. Yes, Harpreet has been following it for the last 10 years, I would say. And he finally convinced me to, at least give it a try here in Coimbatore at the Isha Ashram.
Okay.
So, last year around May I was here. I did my inner engineering program.
Okay.
And it changed me a lot. I would say it changed me rather than my thoughts or anything. It changed me.
Right.
I didn't expect it. Actually, maybe there was no expectation. That's what happened.
Okay.
And I came here with a completely blank mind.
Right.
Right? And it's not about meditation alone, I would say. It's about taking a step back and always being mindful
Okay.
about everything that you do.
Right.
May it be parenting, may it be your work, may it be when you're talking to your spouse, right? Or anyone, your friends. Like I said, right? We are always rushed. We are always stressed about, oh, time. If I do this, then after there's that. Oh, I have limited time. I have to finish my work, rush back. My daughter is waiting for dinner. That was always at least for me, and it still is at times, right? But this mindfulness helps when I say, why so much rush? Where are we going with that? Not required. And more so if my daughter sees that, what she will think that, oh, mom is always running around, right? So we don't want to set that example,
Right.
because it should be more of a calm, happy life, and that's has helped. I practice this kriya every morning,
Right.
and it sets the right mood for the whole day.
Awesome.
It gets the right thoughts in place,
Right.
and calms me down, more importantly.
That's nice. Good, yeah. So you've been practicing for 10 years.
About, I think, 9 years or so.
Okay.
I think I've always
Into
like,
yoga also.
yoga and meditation.
Okay.
I think I've always had a self-introspective bent of mind, somehow. And that coupled with when I started yoga and meditation has helped. I think our world around us has become very, very, very noisy without us even realizing.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is, you and I were brought up in a less noisy world. So we know what that lack of noise,
Feels
that
like.
silence feels. It is very comforting, very calm. All of us are just inundated with all the stream coming, and our children are absolutely through the roof with this. So first, for us to find this 30 minutes in the day to do some yoga and meditation, I learned it at Isha Coimbatore, and the multiple ways of doing meditation, one can learn it from anywhere.
Yeah.
But finding the time for your nervous system to calm down. So I'm going back to science. What is meditation? Meditation is giving time to your central nervous system to calm down. When you close your eyes, what happens? You stop processing the world. Right? You have some time for yourself, your nervous system calms down. Even if you do not learn any meditation in yoga, you sit down for 30 minutes with your eyes closed, at the end of it you are bound to feel better. So, I follow yoga. Bhakti also started doing marathons. I used to do them earlier. I think even running long distances is very meditative. Because after a while your thoughts stop. You have no more thoughts.
You have to step into your body.
You have it just finishes. It just finishes after 20-25 kilometers. It just finishes. When I have run these 100-kilometer races, by the end of it, you are Buddha himself. Because for 100 kilometers you have been running. That is the world. So this is something that I do, and I think everybody in the world can benefit from taking out 30 minutes of calm time for themselves. Whether it's meditation or just closing eyes, whatever it may be.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. I really, really hope that this inspires more people to have their own mindfulness practices in their lives. Thank you, Harpreet, for joining me today. I loved the conversation with you. Really hope to have you again sometime next.
Absolutely. You should come to Bombay sometime.
Yeah.
Wonderful being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing what you're doing. I think it is important, and I wish more folks were open talking about the kind of stuff.
Thank you. And thank you, Bhakti, for
Well, jumping in.
Yeah, jumping in.
And being a sport.
And once again, happy anniversary, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening, being patient to listen to the whole thing. There's lots and lots of information that Harpreet has given, especially the screen time related information was my favorite in the whole thing. I think we need to be really serious about it. I'm sending you all a lot of healing and happy vibes from my end and from Harpreet and from Bhakti. All the best to all of you. Love you all. Take care.